So I need everyone to mentally time travel with me for a second. It's 2005. You're probably wearing low-rise jeans, your computer is shaped like a giant box, your internet browser is probably either Internet Explorer or Firefox, and you're living in constant fear of pop-ups. And the internet is still kind of this weird digital wasteland where everything can happen. And I mean anything. Because in 2005, a college student did something so stupidly simple, it almost sounds fake. He made a website, just a blank website, and he sold the pixels on the screen for $1 each. And somehow, this man made $1 million. $1 million.
$1 million.
From pixels, which is honestly insane because in 2026, we pay $12.99 a month minimum for streaming services and still don't technically own anything. But this guy sold a tiny square on the internet and people were like, yeah, that's a solid investment. So today, we're talking about one of the weirdest internet stories of all time, the $1 Million Homepage. The story of how one broke student accidentally created a blueprint for modern internet capitalism, meme economics, and the attention economy. And also, how this entire $1 million masterpiece is slowly dying in real time. Because, of course it is. To understand why the $1 Million Homepage worked, you have to understand the internet back then. Because the internet in 2005 wasn't what we have now. There was no TikTok, no Instagram, there was no algorithms deciding your fate. And virality wasn't automated. It was something you had to earn. Back then, the internet was basically like the Wild West. There were forums, blogs, random websites that looked like they were designed by a caffeinated raccoon, and programs like LimeWire, where you'd download linkinpark.mp3 and accidentally receive 17 viruses. And this was also the era right after the dot-com crash. So if you're too young to remember the dot-com bubble, let me translate. In the late 90s, people were throwing money at anything that had a website. A company could be like, hey, we deliver pet food. And investors would go, oh my god, this is the future. And then by 2000, reality showed up with a baseball bat. The NASDAQ peaked in March of 2000, and the entire bubble collapsed. Pets.com died, Webvan died, WorldCom imploded. A lot of people lost a lot of money. So by the early 2000s, there was this weird cultural mood where the internet was still growing, but people were also like, okay, but is any of this real? Or is this all just digital snake oil? And at the same time, broadband was becoming more common. This is a huge deal, because dial-up internet was not always on. For those of you youngsters out there, dial-up was internet connected to your phone line, which meant if your teenage sister was on the phone for 2 hours telling her boyfriend, no, you hang up, over and over again, no one could use the internet for those 2 hours. It also gave us this banger of a sound. Broadband changed everything though. Suddenly, the internet was always there, always available, always tempting, which meant attention online became more valuable than ever. And the internet started shifting from weird hobby to real economy. And into this chaotic soup of post-dot-com skepticism and early broadband expansion walks one guy with the simplest business idea imaginable. So the $1 Million Homepage was created by a 21-year-old British student named Alex Tew. And Alex had a problem, a very relatable problem. He wanted to go to university, but university costs money, which is a problem that has haunted humanity since the dawn of higher education. And he was staring down these expenses like, oh, this is going to financially ruin me forever. Which, I mean, same bro. I honestly feel that in my soul. So Alex starts brainstorming ways to make some money online. And he specifically said he was thinking about cheap things that could be sold in large quantities, which is already funny because that's basically the same mindset as every modern tech bro who invents an app that makes your fridge talk to your toaster. And after brainstorming, he lands on the idea of, what if I sold pixels? Not ads, not banner space, not subscriptions, pixels. 1,000 by 1,000 pixel grid. That's 1 million pixels, and each pixel would cost $1. But you could only buy them in 10 by 10 blocks, meaning the minimum purchase was $100. So right away, you've got this perfect setup. Simple, stupid, easy to understand, and just believable enough that people might actually do it. Also, he chose to sell them in US dollars even though he was British because the US internet audience was way bigger. And also because psychologically, $1 feels cheaper than £1, which is genius marketing because human brains are basically just raccoons with credit cards. His upfront cost was almost nothing. Domain registration, basic hosting, simple design. This wasn't a Silicon Valley startup. This wasn't venture capital. This wasn't, oh, we're disrupting the industry kind of thing. This was a guy making a grid in HTML and hoping for the best. And on August 26, 2005, the $1 million homepage went live. And it looked like, it looked like a website made in 2005. So basically a digital war crime for your eyes. Now, at first it wasn't instantly successful, because nobody wants to be the first person to buy pixels on some random website. So Alex does something extremely important. He seeds the project. He gets friends and family to buy the first pixels. Around 4,700 pixels were purchased early on. Not enough to make him rich, but enough to make the site look active. And that matters because people don't want to join something that looks dead. The moment it looks like a real thing, it becomes a real thing. And then he reinvests the early money into PR, which is another key part of the story, because people love to act like virality is random, but virality is often manufactured with just enough gasoline to start the fire. So he hires a PR firm. They write press releases, and eventually the story gets picked up by major outlets like BBC and The Guardian. And the second that happens, everything changes. Because now this isn't just a random guy's website. Now it's news. Now it's a phenomenon. And suddenly everyone is clicking. Everyone is sharing. And people start buying. On the day of the first major news article, he made around $3,000 in sales. Then it escalated into a full-blown media cascade. Coverage spreads internationally. Forums pick it up, blogs pick it up, and people start talking about it just because it's weird. And within the first month, he made about $250,000, which is an amount of money that would make most of us collapse dramatically onto the floor like a Victorian woman. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because the $1 million homepage is one of the best examples of pre-algorithm virality. Back then, content didn't go viral because TikTok decided it was time. Content went viral because humans were actively sharing it, sending it in emails, posting it on forums, dropping it on Dig, Slashdot, or Delicious. And the $1 million homepage had everything humans love. First, novelty. It was weird, it was simple, it was visually chaotic in a way that made you stare at it like you were watching a train derail in slow motion. Second, it had a narrative. The broke student trying to pay for university story is doing a lot of heavy lifting here, because people love an underdog story, even if the underdog is selling you the internet equivalent of a carpet square. Third, it had scarcity. And scarcity is basically crack for the human brain. There were only 1 million pixels. Once they were gone, they were gone. So suddenly, people weren't just buying ad space. They were buying a piece of something limited, which triggers that same little goblin voice in your head that screams, "Buy it now or you'll regret it forever." This is literally the psychology behind everything from limited edition sneakers to NFTs to McDonald's bringing back the McRib. And because the page was static, everyone saw the exact same grid. There was no personalization, no For You page, no targeting, none of that creepy tracking stuff. Just one universal chaotic ad quilt, which meant placement mattered. People wanted to be seen near the top or like in the center or in a visually loud area. It was digital king of the hill. You weren't paying for clicks. You were paying for presence. And this is a huge clue about what the modern internet would become. Because what Alex Tew accidentally created here was digital real estate, this wasn't just advertising. It was ownership, or at least the illusion of ownership. You were buying space on a web page that would supposedly last forever. And that is the key, forever. That is what made people feel like this was worth it. And you can absolutely see how this predicts modern internet culture. Because now we have influencer sponsorship slots, brand deals, link in bio real estate, website SEO wars, digital storefronts, and of course, NFTs. And the logic is always the same. This is scarce, this is unique, this is yours, this is history. Even if it's just a JPEG of a monkey wearing sunglasses. The $1 Million homepage is basically the ancestor of that entire mindset. It's the moment people realized, wait, you can sell digital space if enough people agree it matters, which is kind of terrifying, but also kind of genius. It also democratized advertising in a weird way, because you had major companies buying space next to random blogs. Yahoo could be right beside someone's GarageBand website. It was like if Times Square allowed a dentist office and a meme page to rent billboards for the same price, which is objectively hilarious, and also very early internet. Another reason this hit so hard is because it landed at the peak of 2000s get-rich online mythology. It was the first era where people were obsessed with the idea that the internet was a goldmine, and if you just figured out the right trick, you could escape the normal working world forever. This is when affiliate marketing starts taking off. Domain squatting, early SEO manipulation, those terrible make $10,000 a week from home scams. It was a digital gold rush. But unlike the 90s dot-com bubble where giant corporations were making bank, the 2000s gold rush was more individual. It was like, what if you, random guy with a laptop, could become rich? And the $1 Million homepage was basically the dream scenario. It was a get-rich-quick scheme that actually worked, which is rare. Usually, those end with someone crying in their kitchen and filing for bankruptcy. But Alex Tew actually pulled it off, and the internet ate it up because it confirmed what everyone wanted to believe, that you didn't need a degree or a fancy company or investors. You just needed one weird idea. And honestly, that belief is still alive today. It's just evolved. Now it's make a YouTube channel, start a drop shipping store, sell feet pics, sell an online course, become an influencer. Same dream, different outfit. Now, of course it wasn't all sunshine and pixel money, because if you make it $1 million online, the internet does what it always does. It tries to ruin your life. In January 2006, Alex Tew gets hit with a ransom demand. Someone emails him and basically says, pay us $5,000 or we're going to take your site down. He ignores it because honestly, what kind of idiot would believe that? And then the attackers launch a DDoS attack. And anyone who doesn't speak fluent cybercrime, a DDoS attack is basically when thousands of infected computers spam your server with so much traffic that it collapses. And they used something like 22,000 to 23,000 zombie computers, which is horrifying. Like, imagine your website being attacked by an undead army of Windows XP machines, and the ransom demand escalated to $50,000 because criminals are nothing if not ambitious. The site was down for about a week, right as the final pixels were being sold. Alex refused to pay. He worked with his hosting provider, and authorities got involved, including the FBI. This whole moment is important because it shows something we tend to forget. Early internet entrepreneurship was risky in ways modern creators don't always deal with. If your TikTok gets banned, you're devastated. But in 2005, if your website went viral, you could get extorted by international cybercriminals. So that's fun. Eventually, the pixels sell out. The million pixel grid fills completely, and the final blocks are auctioned on eBay, because of course they were. And by early 2006, Alex Tew had successfully done the impossible. He sold the entire internet quilt. $1 million. Mission accomplished. Student debt defeated. And the $1 million homepage became legendary. But here's where things get deeply funny, because the site promised permanence. And permanence on the internet is basically a myth we tell ourselves so we can sleep at night. One of the most fascinating parts of this story is what happened after. Because the $1 million homepage still exists. You can still visit it. It's still online. And it's still kind of terrifying to look at. But the links are dying. And this is what we call link rot. Link rot is when websites disappear, domains expire, businesses die, or someone just stops paying for hosting. So all these pixels people bought, a lot of them now lead to dead pages, or redirect to weird parked domains, or go to completely unrelated websites because the domain got bought by someone else, which is honestly the funniest possible fate for a $1 million project. Quartz did an analysis in 2014 and found that about 22% of the links were already dead. So basically, a chunk of that $1 million digital real estate was already a graveyard. And over time, it's gotten worse. By 2025, estimates suggest only about 40% of the links still go to something active. And even then, some of those active sites aren't the original businesses. They're just domain squatters. So what you have now is this eerie digital fossil, a preserved relic of 2005 internet capitalism, slowly decaying, like the ruins of an ancient city. Except instead of crumbling marble columns, it's broken hyperlinks and blurry JPEG logos. It's almost poetic, really. The $1 million homepage is basically a monument to the fact that nothing on the internet is permanent. Even when someone paid $100 for a 10 by 10 square and thought they were buying immortality. Now, you might be thinking, why didn't everyone just copy this idea? And they did. They absolutely did. Because humans love copying success stories. But almost all the copycats failed. And that's because the $1 million homepage wasn't successful just because it was clever. It was successful because of timing. It happened in a very specific moment where the internet was connected enough to spread the story globally, but not centralized enough to control it. The novelty factor mattered, because once the first person sells pixels, the second person selling pixels is just sad. Congratulations, you missed the cultural moment. So the $1 million homepage becomes this rare one-time phenomenon. A lightning strike, a perfect storm. Now, this is my favorite detail. After the $1 million homepage, Alex Tew tries to replicate the success. He launches other projects, Pixelato, 1 Million People, Pop Jam, and they don't really hit the same. Because you can't just manufacture lightning twice. And Alex himself later described this period as him chasing attention instead of value, which is extremely self-aware. And then in 2012, he pivots and he co-founds a meditation app, Calm. Yes, that Calm. The app that's like, hello, welcome, let's breathe. Which is hilarious because this man went from creating one of the most visually overstimulating websites ever made to creating an app designed to soothe people who are overstimulated by the internet. That is a character arc. That is a redemption story. That is the most symbolic possible ending to this entire saga. And Calm becomes wildly successful, which kind of proves something. The internet evolved. In 2005, the goal was to capture attention. In the 2010s and 2020s, the goal became to manage attention. Because we are drowning in content now. The scarcity is no longer information. The scarcity is peace. The scarcity is focus. The scarcity is having a single uninterrupted thought. So the guy who sold pixels ends up selling silence, which is honestly one of the most historically significant "this says something about society" moments I have ever seen. So what are the lessons here? Because this isn't just a goofy internet story. This is actually a preview of the modern digital economy. Lesson 1, scarcity is a cheat code. If something is limited, humans go feral. Doesn't matter if it's pixels, shoes, concert tickets, or a limited edition Stanley Cup. Scarcity makes people act like the apocalypse is coming. Lesson 2, narrative sells better than product. The $1 Million homepage wasn't just a grid. It was a broke student trying to pay university. People didn't just buy pixels, they bought the story. And that is basically influencer marketing in embryo form. Lesson 3, attention is currency. Even in 2005, before the algorithm era, attention was already the real money. The $1 Million homepage is basically the moment the internet realized attention could be directly commodified. Lesson 4, digital ownership is mostly imaginary. A site promised permanence, but the internet decays. Websites die. Domains expire. Meaning changes. And your $100 square becomes a dead link to nowhere. This is why internet archiving matters and why digital history is so fragile. Lesson 5, timing matters more than genius. This idea worked because it happened at the exact right cultural moment. A few years earlier, it might not have spread. A few years later, it might have been drowned out by social media. It was perfectly placed between the dot-com crash and the rise of algorithm-driven platforms. The sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone of internet chaos. The $1 Million homepage is one of those stories that feels like it shouldn't be real. A guy selling pixels shouldn't be a functional business plan. And yet, it worked. And it worked so well that it basically predicted the future. Because today, the internet is built on selling attention, selling space, selling visibility, selling the illusion of permanence. And what's left behind is this giant chaotic grid that still exists, still online, slowly rotting away link by link like an abandoned shopping mall. A digital fossil from a time when the internet was messy, experimental, and just centralized enough to go viral without being controlled. And maybe that's the real legacy of $1 Million homepage. Not the $1 million, but the fact that it captured a moment in internet history that will probably never get back. A moment when the web was still weird, still human, still kinda stupid, and honestly, kind of beautiful. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the strangest internet success stories of all time, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and leave me a comment down below. And if you want more internet archaeology, digital history, and the weird cultural side of gaming and tech, you're in the right place. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye! Also, if anyone wants to buy 1 pixel on my channel for $1, I'm kidding. Unless. Just saying.